I was introduced to come as the teacher for Experience Festival. It was an organization asking me to teach on the Sufi way. So I can share perhaps two experiences very deep. One of these experiences was a few days after the beginning, after one Diksha. It's happened after 5 minutes, perhaps, after the Diksha. Suddenly, I feel inside of me a causeless joy, very beautiful joy inside of me coming. And in the same time, I was listening the voice of my mothers. I was like a child, very small child. I was in my houses exactly if I was returning to the back of my birthday. And I feel that I was like a baby, a newborn. And I was so surprised. In the same time, some consciousness was there. And I was also listening some sound out of the blue. Om, 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 like this, so many sound, beautiful sound. And I was so surprised. I stand up. I try to walk to know if some people was around giving this sound. And I get out of my room, and I was seeing all the creations have changed. I feel the tree have a new colors. I was understanding the bird, the ant. I want to touch the tree and to communicate, and they was full of love. All the creations was full of love. I was very close, and I was able to understand and to communicate with these creations, not through words, but through this kind of love, exactly as perhaps the fish on the sea who feel that he is one with the sea.
Has the way you're speaking about enlightenment, has that changed over time, or has it always been the same that you're speaking about?
It has not changed over time, except that I've been giving different points of view. I've been making the description richer and richer to help people. It is not that the idea is evolving or some concepts have changed. It's not like that. But since there's only a short course there, we cannot talk about everything. So we have this habit of talking a little bit in this course, a little bit in the next course, a little bit this year, a little bit next year. So very often it has led to the impression as though the concept is being changed. Even now, whatever we have spoken to the public is probably less than 1% of what we are capable of speaking. But since there's just no time, and maybe we don't have to speak all those things, we are not speaking about it. But as people evolve, certainly we'll be speaking a lot more to help them.
So, how would somebody know if they are enlightened as opposed to being in an enlightened state?
Basically, if a person has become enlightened, as different from the enlightened state, he should himself know that he has made it. Because he would certainly see a clear difference between what he was earlier and what he is now. All that is required is he has to try to remember how he was in the past, and he will see a definite difference there. And he'll find that something is missing, somebody is not there. That's how he would, but he might not know, unless we define that as enlightenment, he might not know that he'll just feel that there is a difference, that's all. And he goes along living merrily, you know. So the definitions do help him in that sense. To say, yes, something has happened to me.
Yeah, so this seems to be also, Bhagavan, a little bit what has created the confusion is that there have been many people saying, I'm enlightened, so they are convinced they've made it, but actually, according to these brain measurements, they haven't. So
yes, these people seem to have their own idea of enlightenment, and maybe we are also responsible for that, and therefore they declare themselves to be enlightened. And there are also people who are actually enlightened, who know clearly that they are enlightened because they have come and told us, I have made it, I am enlightened, I am not there, and we have checked and we have found that to be true. That also is there. And there are also people who have actually become enlightened and still are not aware that they're enlightened, whom we have had to educate. And then they became clear.
I see.
So all possibilities are there.
So would it be true that there are actually a variety of flavors of enlightenment, that people become enlightened in their own way?
There's a huge variety of flavors. No two people are identical.
Could you say a little bit more about different flavors?
Yes. In some people, what is very characteristic about them is the absence of conflict. In some people, there is a tremendous silence all the time with them. And in some people, there is this unconditional love flowing through them. Some are the state of unconditional joy. So various qualities are predominant in various people. It's not exactly the same, because it depends upon how the parietal lobes are, how the frontal lobes are, and how the general system is functioning, how the energy is flowing to the nadis. So all these things make that difference. Some can be so ecstatic that they cannot even move around. And there are those who are running around in ecstasy. So all varieties are there.
Now, you've spoken about enlightenment as a particular demarcation.
Yes.
But what about after? After the clear, irreversible recognition there's nobody here.
Yes, yes.
What is the continued evolution after that?
The continuation is that you can clearly see that the mind is out there and that it is functioning on its own, and that you can just witness it doing all the work. And normally at this stage we call the mind a small bird, and the one who's witnessing as the big bird. So we would say you have moved into the big bird and you're watching the small bird. But within the small bird there is conflict, there is thought, everything is there. And at the next level of development, the conflict ceases. So as the big bird watches the small bird, there's no conflict in the small bird. And at a higher level, thoughts too have vanished from the small bird. And at a still higher level, the small bird itself has vanished. So it keeps going on that way. And then at one point, the big bird also vanishes, and you feel that you are the universe. So all these things keep happening. But we generally don't talk much about it. People discover it on their own.
Yes, I never heard you speak about birds before.
Yes, yes.
But now I understand it's all about birds.
Yes.
So, Bhagavan,
we do speak about these things in the Indian processes. We keep it much simpler in the Western processes. But in India, we do speak about the small bird and the big bird.
There's actually a television program in America, Bhagavan, for children, where they have a character called Big Bird.
Oh, I see.
I'm going to see that program in a completely different way now.
I see.
Big Bird is more enlightened than I had thought.
I see.
You talk about enlightenment, but I've also heard you use the word God realization.
Yes.
Is that something different from enlightenment?
It is something different from enlightenment. Enlightenment is the basic realization that you don't actually exist. And there's no personal suffering. Because we talk about enlightenment in many different ways. But the commonest definition is there's an end to personal suffering and an end to the feeling that you exist as an individual. But God realization is something totally different, where you realize that there's an entity, a power, with which you could relate and you could get your things done. That is what we call God realization. And ultimately, you becoming that God yourself.
So how does God realization occur? Is it also just a matter of the lobes changing, or?
Yes, the lobes keep changing a lot more. And as the lobes keep changing, ultimately there comes a point when you see that the God whom you're praying to, relating to, is but yourself. First it comes as an insight, then as some kind of realization, and then an actual happening occurs. When the shift happens, then then you're like Christ saying, I and my Father are one. That happens.
So, Bhagavan, you also spoke about oneness. Yes. Is a state of oneness or a condition of oneness the same as what you're calling enlightenment, or is that, again, something else?
When you just say enlightenment, we might not call that as oneness. But as your enlightenment becomes deeper and deeper, you come to a point where actually you see that you are the other. That the other completely ceases to exist. That you and the other are actually one. That's when we would say you are in a state of oneness. Right now you might feel, let us say, the tree is there and you are there, and